Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
Cube Monk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Track your goods with our advanced GPS system. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Insured Nomads provides protection and peace of mind with health insurance, travel insurance, group, or tailored insurance for the globally mobile. Visit us at insurednomads.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
It's Ed Cohen in San Diego, and this, again, is Global TV Talk Show, a news product of globalbusinessnews.net. Jen Salta is with us today. She's with Strong Minds. Strong Minds is a unit of Verano Learning Partners, and representing Verano, Chase Eskelsen. Welcome again, Chase.
Hey, thanks so much, Ed. I'm really happy that we can bring Jen over from our sister entity, Strong Mind, and we're really excited. We've got a great show queued up for you today.
Jen Salta, I was looking at your LinkedIn, and you make a big deal out of street cred and meeting the kids where they're at. Okay, so what's that mean?
Right, so one of the things that I've been doing this a long time. I've come out of the classroom. I've worked in implementation and training. I've worked in, I've done a bunch of stuff. I've worked in development and from the product side. So I've worked in all of those elements from user and moving forward. And one of the things that has just resonated and been true where whatever role I'm in is that when you're working with learners, whether they're young students, whether they're, like in a K-12 scenario, whether they're teachers, you've got to meet people where they are. You've got to go say, okay, listen, what do you have right now? What skills do you have? What pieces and parts of the whole solution of learning do you have in your toolkit right now? And that's where you are, right? In order for me to look at mentoring to improvement and to go farther, I have to start where you are. And that's not always where a grade level, right? A predefined grade level says, or a predefined number of years in the classroom says, or a predefined anything says. People are not widgets, right? We're all kind of unique, and we have to address where folks are so that we can bring them forward and really take advantage and get that ball rolling with learning and really kind of get folks up to speed and get going. And it's been super important because it's not just about sort of the academic side, right? It's about how they're willing to change or how they're able to change or where they are in their whatever path they're on. So that's across all of my experience over the last so many years. I've stopped doing that math, but over the course of all of that time, it is one thing that has been the same regardless of the learner, regardless of the situation. So meeting learners and students where they are is, for me, it's a huge key to their success and making sure that things work well.
So I know you focus on K through 12, but what do you really focus on? Where's your sweet spot? How old?
Oh, my absolute loves were grades 3 and 4.
Now, that's what, 6 and 7?
About
ages 6 and 7,
8, right in there, 7, 8, 9, right in there.
Now,
oh my gosh, so much fun, I can't even stand it.
So, are they by natural very good at maintaining or establishing eye contact with you?
The little ones?
Yeah.
The little ones are great. They will, yeah, they are great at getting right at it and saying, okay, you know, I was Miss Drake at the time, but Miss Drake, you know, they would just jump into anything, and so they're very open to that discovery piece. And so when we look at all of, and I would get down on the floor with them and do it with them, and so we could build a really strong relationship, and they understood that I wasn't going to ask them to do anything that I wasn't willing to do, right? And you build that rapport and you build that relationship, and all of a sudden you as a grown-up become super relevant to who they are and what they need to do, and man, you can do some amazing things.
So how do you do that with those kids that age? Do you use something, I mean, to build the rapport and attention and the connectivity?
Yeah.
I don't know what words to use here, but I'm winging it. But do you use Sesame Street characters to, no? You want to go
honestly,
higher? Yeah.
Honestly, when I was in the classroom face-to-face, I used me. And there are probably people who could say that I'm a character, and I would own that. That would be okay.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
So did you have pink hair at that time?
I did not have pink hair. I had really long, really curly, crazy hair, but I did not have pink hair.
Well, so what's...
But, you know, it's really, honestly, the biggest part is listening, right? It's offering a really compelling question or a really compelling something that they need to dig into, and then just listening to their questions and listening to how they're processing the information, and really sort of guiding, almost like a tour guide, right? Guiding them and pushing information their way when it suits their question, and holding back until they get to the question so that you can push things their way. So it's a dance. Oh my gosh, and it's so much fun. Now, if I'm looking in a virtual scenario, right, there are different ways to do that virtually. So it's, you know, it's videos, it's conversations like this where you can do some synchronous pieces. And it's guiding from the content that you need to get to, and listening to where they are and building that relationship and building that relevance so that they say, oh, hold up, I understand why you're giving me that. I understand the why behind why I need to do that. And oh, by the way, I trust you. So I will follow you down that path, even when it gets hard and even when I get nervous about it.
Okay, so now let's go to the 7th and 8th grade level, and even 9. So it's different world, and right?
A little bit. 7th and 8th graders, well, first of all students want to be older than they actually are, right? So my daughter wanted to be 25 when she was 3. So, all students sort of look up. They wherever they are developmentally, they from a social perspective and some of the other things that are relevant to them, they really want to feel and push a little bit older. So your 3s and 4s and 5s, they really want to sort of be in middle school, right? And your middle school students really sort of think they know everything, and they're ready to be in high school. And your high school kids are ready to be out on their own, right? I have a 17-year-old who would move out today if he could. So when you're in that middle school space, the relationship building, in my opinion, is even more valuable. And finding the relevance to where they are, because this is a grade level where they're now developmentally stretching a little bit to see where the limits are. They're I don't want to use the word rebelling. I don't like that word, but for lack of a better word at the moment, they're pushing those boundaries, and they're trying. And by the way, that's academic as well as behavioral. They're really trying to stretch and kind of stretch their skin into that adult skin.
Now, how do you do that online?
Oh my gosh. So that's stuff like this. That's the I'm going to reach out to them via whatever messaging system makes sense. If it's email, if it's in a discussion group, if it's video, if it's chat back and forth, whatever that is, again, it's listening. But remember, from my perspective, listening could be listening like I'm talking to you, but listening is also looking at what they're saying in their texts and what questions they're asking. Listening is also saying, ooh, this kid didn't show up for a couple of days, right? That's a communication. If you don't show up for a couple of days, that's a communication. So that's where that whole child idea comes in, and really trying to understand what they're going through and reaching out and saying, maybe I don't reach out as a virtual teacher. Maybe I don't reach out and talk about academics. Maybe I reach out and say, hey, are you okay? Hey, is everything going okay? Because I haven't seen you and I've missed you. And that personal space and building those relationships and building those trust pieces back in, again, that's what makes you relevant to them. That's what makes the academics you're bringing to the table, that supports that being relevant to them. And then, Ed, you just have to ask really interesting questions.
So a lot of when a kid, particularly 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, when they're tuning out, there's something going on at home probably, or there's a disconnection somewhere, or a lack of support. So online, we'll just focus online for now. How do you manage that without prying?
Exactly. So there are a couple of pieces to that. I will always root whatever solution to the problem, right? As I'm trying to tackle what's going on, I will always root that solution, or what I'm going to attempt to do, my hypothesis, that sort of thing. I'm always going to root that in the relationship between the child and the teacher, the child and me. I've got to have built that, or the road is so much more difficult. So assuming, I'm going to assume this, assuming that there is a base level relationship there are a couple of really cool things that you can do to really try to reach out to the kid. First of all, reach out where it's not about school, where it's totally about them, right? Hey, are you okay? Are you fine, right? Physically, a kid can't do academics if they're not safe. They can't do academics if they're hungry. By the way, these are all true online and off. Kids can't if they don't trust you, if they're not in a space where they can function. Those are those basic things that have to happen for learning in the first place. Learning comes on top of those things.
So that's what you mean by the whole child.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is, you can, as you're building the relationship, you can slide some of these, like, hey, I always called it stick-to-itiveness. I would ask our kids, how are our stick-to-itiveness today? And they'd go, oh my gosh, that's not even a word. But it was just my way of saying, hey guys, how are we doing? We're going to do hard things. We're going to do them together. Is everybody in, right? Is everybody in a good place to do that work today? There are some things that you can add, little bits of pieces about their social emotional learning, right? This is the idea that things like self-control and things like self-discipline, which are similar but slightly different, things in that social emotional space, those can be taught, and kids don't necessarily come. We were talking before the show a little bit about babies and baby animals, puppies and kitties. They don't come with the knowledge of how to function in the world, right? There are things that we have to mentor and things that we have to help them with and things that we have to help them grow into. And these social emotional pieces are some of those things. So using a social emotional cue and really talking about how to stay with it and how to overcome obstacles and really actually teaching those skills in a similar way that you might teach addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, that is a huge plus, particularly for kids who are not necessarily getting all of that reinforcement at home. And that really, Ed, that's the whole child piece, right? It's the academics, it's the social emotional piece. It's all of that together, because you know what? That's who we're teaching. We're teaching a child. We're not teaching a subject. We're not teaching. It's not about the delivery mechanism, right? It's about the student, and that student comes with all kinds of things wrapped around their brain.
So this, what you're talking about, is really the whole philosophy behind Strong Minds.
In a lot of ways, absolutely. So strong-minded, when we are strong, we've got a product that is really close to our name, and sometimes I trip. So let me be real clear. So at StrongMind, one of the things that we've developed is this idea that obviously you have this academic base, right? There are state standards that need to be covered. That's the lay of the land. That's how that works. That's a key in making students successful, right? So we have that piece. Then one of the other pieces that we really targeted was how to make teachers successful. So we have teacher support so that if students are working in, part online or part in class or all online, we have these supports so that teachers can really take advantage and ask those rich questions. Once you take care of the relationship building, right, the next thing you have to do is get this going for them. They have to be intrigued. You have to give them juicy, meaty, sometimes really hard questions so that they start to dig, and then they really become adventurers, or they become, they learn and they go through discovery. So that's the second set, right? So we have the academic elements for the students, we have those supports and those rich questions for the teacher, and then we have something called strong-minded, which are these elements of social emotional learning that you can blend in and weave throughout, and those can be done in a whole class, although I'm going to be really honest, they're best done individually, because again, kids aren't widgets, and meeting them where they are. So it is really important. So the ability to take a social emotional piece and slide it in right when that kid needs it, man, that's huge, right? And again, those are messages. Those are parts and points where you can get data, you can get communication, you can really listen to what the students are looking at and what they're going through, and figure out how to meet them where they are to get them where they need to go.
Yeah, Chase?
Honestly, Ed, when you think about all of the things that Jen's mentioned, this is one of the things that is so unique about the Bridge School, and that Julie has really focused heavily on with her teachers is, look, the students that we're serving in the Bridge School, they're not only are they students with all of those unique needs and making sure that we're supporting them appropriately, but then we're throwing, in many instances, this added area of being a third culture kid. And these students are going through something that most people can't relate to. And so it's important as educators that we take that into a consideration as we're having these conversations, is they're going through a lot more than just a normal home life and a normal academic experience. They've got a different language, a different culture. They've got friends from all over the world. And many times they're highly mobile, and they're, only going to be here in this location for a year or two, or their best friend is going to leave. So it's just that much more compounded, which is one of the things that we really love about the social emotional opportunity that we have to provide through the Strong Mind curriculum at the Bridge School. It's just so unique compared to what most educators and students alike have to deal with.
So is the Sound Mind curriculum an extra fee, or is it all built in?
Strong Mind. So the content itself comes bundled, and we really think and we look at this as a solution. So as we go into a school like Bridge, or as we go into a school that we might manage, or a school where we may sell pieces and parts, we really take a look at what the solution looks like. So again, I'm telling you, it works every place ever. Meeting people where they are. So you go into the district and you say, okay, listen, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Where are the sticky wickets? It's a technical term. Where are the sticky wickets in your world? And then we match solutions with those. So I don't think of it, Ed, so much as a product that you upsell or that you sell separately, as much as it's this idea of fulfilling the solution so that people have really good tools to do what they need to do.
Good. Thank you very much for that. Chase?
Yeah, well, this is a perfect segue into some of the other pieces that StrongMind provides. So StrongMind is a partner of ours, and they do a lot of both services and products, so the curriculum and different things. And I was really excited to pull Jen in because they've got just a lot of different things going on over there. We've already kind of talked about that relationship building and the relevance and seeing that whole child. But Jen, can you give the listeners an idea of an example of implementation with some of this stuff? It's not just a product that we flip a switch and you can turn it on. Like, there's so many use cases and ideas and ways to implement it. And I think it's really important, especially for those listening who maybe are from a corporate entity that they say, man, we want to provide a solution for our students. Maybe we're having a tough time finding, people who are willing to move to this location because of the lacking of school options. Well, the Bridge School and Verano are the perfect partner because we can customize it based on the StrongMind products in a whole variety of different ways. So what do some of those things look like?
Absolutely. So we have a whole system. So on the product side, right, we've got ways to deliver content for what I would call a virtual, we'll just call it the fully virtual scenario, right? So we've got ways to deliver to that, and those again are targeted to that need. So if you've got students that are traveling, if you've got, I need to say something real quick though, Chase. Sorry, if I don't say it, I will not be able to get past the answer. One of the things Chase just said about the Bridge School resonated with me so much that I'm now interrupting everything. The idea, the idea that you've got students in other cultures and they're moving around so much, the idea that they could have a relationship that's steady as they travel with their teachers, with their adult mentors at a school like Bridge, it's just, man, that just roots everything in a really great place. Chase and I have talked tons in the past, and I've never really heard it like that. But man, I got to tell you, that just hit me right here because that's one of those things where that really is the root of all of it. And so anyway, yay, sorry.
So I see here in the notes, somewhat related to this, but tell me if I'm wrong, social emotional learning.
Yes, social emotional learning those are the elements that we can mix in. So let's talk about a use case like Bridge, where we're looking across countries, we're looking across situations, cultures, and scenarios. So we have content that can be delivered through the Bridge School, right? Through a school just like that. And our support systems, our services folks can come in and really take a look at what the students in that scenario need, what the teachers need, and they can do implementation to really teach how to do that thing very well, right? So there's a delivery of content that's there. There's an education of the educators, because teaching online is different than teaching face-to-face. It just is. And there are tricks there, and I don't mean that in a bait and switch kind of way, but there are really strategies and those kinds of things that can be used that are used really effectively. And not everybody comes to the table with that understanding. So our implementation team can come and really, really dig in, again, based on the needs of the school and the outcomes that they are looking for, right? The children that they are serving. And Ed, you're right. That's where that one of those SEL pieces comes in. So those social emotional learning, which we abbreviate as SEL because educators we acronym
everything.
There's literally an acronym for everything in education. So social emotional learning, or SEL, those are the pieces that really can help, particularly in a virtual space, that can really help build that relationship and really help those kids with what they're struggling with. Am I struggling with the fact that I've moved a couple of times and I'm feeling a little bit disconnected? Okay, so there's an SEL module that can cover and build some skills around that and allow the students to practice that in an online way, right? Separate from who they are, but then take that and make that actionable for in their space, in their real world.
So how does this relate now to FPC? What is that? Well, it says here.
Oh my gosh, you're making up an accent.
Future-proof content. FPC.
Oh, Ed, you are now part of the educational world, man.
Well, I've learned from Chase.
You're in. That's how you do it. One of the things that I think about future-proofing, right? When I think about those kinds of things, and this is where I put my developer hat on. These are things where we think about the fact that students are moving around globally. We've got lots of, and they always have been, but the technology has kind of caught up. And the ability to take a look at how we deliver content so that no matter where the school, we meet the kid not only where they are academically, not only where they are from a social emotional perspective, but also where they are geographically, right? We can use those technologies. So when I'm talking about future-proofing content, I'm really talking about this idea of being able to deliver the right stuff at the right time to the right kid in the right way, which means lots of different flexibilities, and it means really understanding the new technologies coming along and how they can advance that.
What about PBL?
Project-based learning.
I'm going to stop. I've had enough.
Project-based learning. Hey, remember earlier when I was talking about asking really rich questions and really asking kids to dig in and get to the hard stuff and go. That's what PBL is. Project-based learning is you set up a real world problem, something that's got tentacles all over the place from an academic perspective. And the students then dive in and they do research and they do presentations and they get to practice all of the skills that they would need to do. So like from a corporate perspective, they get to learn all the stuff that we do every day through a developmentally appropriate question and task. PBL is the jam. It's my fave.
Okay, Chase, do you want to take SAA?
Oh, that's yours, Chase.
SAA, I'm trying to
I'm looking at standards, alignment, accreditation.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, no, standards alignment is so vitally important, specifically what type of school it is. So for instance, Verano, we have a school in Arizona. It's a public charter school. Standards alignment, highly important. We have another charter school in Columbus, Ohio, publicly funded, takes the state assessment. Standards are so important. The Bridge School is an American education, but it's a private school. And we still follow U.S. standards for the school to ensure that a student who graduates from the Bridge School has covered all of the appropriate standards, especially as they consider transitioning back to a U.S. University or college system. But there's no state assessments with a private school. So just to make sure to understand the differences there, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jen because this is her wheelhouse for sure on why standards are important.
Yes. So this is also a little bit of future proofing, although there's a very immediate need and there's an importance surrounding it in the current time, but it's also future proofing, a future proofing consideration. So standards alignment, all of the states have generally and globally, there are different sets of standards that have to be in place in the academic side of things, and actually even in the social emotional side of things, in order to be considered a complete offering or a complete curriculum. And essentially what we do as we look through these things is we look at where the states agree, right? everybody kind of agrees that we should teach addition at this grade level. So those are the easy kinds of things, right? Those are the ones where we have a lot of agreement. And we really on the development side take a really hard look at where the places of agreement are, and as well as where the places of disagreement are, so that we can build the very best set that is quote unquote a grade level and match those pieces. And then we build in the flexibility so that if a state has something a little bit out of the norm, we'll have a lesson there so that you can pull that in. And we build and we look that way. And into the future, we're definitely going to double down on that flexibility and really look at how we can allow folks to move things around to be even more aligned and even more on par and exactly where they need to be with those state standards. But state standards are the bread and butter. So when I'm looking at students and I'm looking from a teacher perspective, that relationship building, that's the foundation upon which everything else is built. When I'm looking at developing curriculum, standards are the foundation on which everything else is built.
So hybrid learning, HL.
Hybrid. So hybrid is the chance. Now in a hybrid scenario, there's lots of different ways to do it. But in a hybrid scenario, essentially what you're looking at is you're looking at a student who is spending some time in a physical location on a campus and some time working completely virtually, right? There are different ways to do it. Some of the ones that I've seen, just again, to give you a kind of a mental picture, I've seen hybrid done in a drop-in center where you've got the majority of the work being done virtually online, but you've got these physical locations where students can come in and they meet with teachers and they can meet with their peers and they can do projects and those kinds of things in a drop-in center. Some drop-in centers are come as you are. Some are scheduled a little bit more. I've seen virtual programs where they have students work in the building or in a building in the morning, and then they go home and they work virtually in the afternoon. Generally, in that kind of a scenario, you're doing the research or the academic, the learning kinds of things. I'm getting the information online in the afternoon, and then the next morning I'm coming in to tackle a problem together. Maybe it's project-based learning. Maybe it's we need to have small groups because this is a tough concept, and we're going to do it both. We're going to teach it both in the online space, and we're going to teach it physically face-to-face. Hybrid is a real interesting thing. I dig it a lot. And the reason I do is because I think it's just the best of both worlds. There's a lot, it takes a lot of work and a lot of organization. Chase is going to go, it does. A lot of work and a lot of organization and a lot of really thinking differently about how we work with students and what we expect of them. And it's just, I think it's a real, man, there's a hybrid excites me a lot. I'm actually very excitable. I don't know if you've noticed. Yeah, hybrid is one of those things where you can mix that SEL. The sky is the limit with hybrid. I love it.
Oh, this has been a tutorial. Chase?
Yeah.
I'm speechless.
No problem, Ed. One of the things that we've talked about on the show a lot is Verano's core existence is to be that education nonprofit that focuses on what's new, what's innovative, and what can help kids to the best of our ability. 20 years ago when we started this thing, the most innovative thing we could have done, start a full-time online school. Nobody else was really doing that 20 years ago. We were one of the first people to this space, and we did it, and we did it really well. I mean, we had the largest full-time online school in the state of Arizona for many, many years. But about 3 years ago, our board came to us and said, hey, we need to do some future proofing. How do we move to the next innovative thing? So 20 years ago, people were starting to think innovatively. But even 5 years ago, many districts and charters and private schools were saying, well, we're 1-to-1, which means we give one computer to one student. We're innovative. That's not innovative anymore. That's old news. And so our board has tasked us with, where do we go from here? What's the next thing? And we all landed and agreed on the fact that blended or hybrid learning, whatever we want to call it, that's where the future of education is. And all of our schools, the Bridge included, have some form of a hybrid component. While we have our hybrid site that's 8 a.m. to noon in Arizona, we have another hybrid site that's 8 a.m. to 3:30 in Ohio. The Bridge School has several hybrid locations. Some are drop-in, some are all day, some are a portion of the day, all around the world. And looking at blended, Jen, it's so easy for us to get excited about it because it's so freaking cool. There's not a little tiny box that you have to fit in. The world is your oyster.
And there doesn't have to be a bell schedule.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times, there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Bell schedule, right? You can you can really rethink things. And honestly, one of the things that really excites me is, I hear a lot. I have my kids are in right now. They're in middle and high school, I hear a lot. Their teachers will say things like, "This is what they need to do in the real world." I'm like, in the real world, there's not a bell schedule. So first of all, that's no. If they don't turn in something, then in the real world you have deadlines, but there's nothing real world about that. In a hybrid scenario, in a rethinking of that blended, you really can take care of that and do what you need to do, and it's just so freeing. It might be a little scary, I'm not gonna lie, because it's so freeing, but once you take the jump, it's a little bit addictive, I think, in the very best of ways.
Well, you got Ed so choked up about it,
I'm sorry, Ed. Are you okay?
Yeah, well, to add kind of to what you were saying, Jen, the fact that you get to create what is best for your unique student set is the absolute best part of hybrid to me, because some kids might still need to be there from 8 a.m. to noon every single day, whereas some kids really only need to come back on certain days at certain times for a specific hands-on project. And that's long been one of the things that people have criticized full-time online about, is how do the kids get their hands dirty? How do they work with each other? And hybrid solves that. They still get the very best of that digital tool, digital technology, as well as they get their hands dirty. They learn about teamwork and leadership and all these different things through project-based learning. And then in either format, we can solve some of the social emotional concerns. And we're in a unique spot, really a turning point in education, where technology is finally being accepted, adopted, implemented, versus it's something that's out there, but I'm going to sit in my same classroom with 30 kids.
So let me ask you, does this relate to hands-on stuff? Finger painting or shop or something?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. What Chase just described is sort of the quintessential meet them where they are, right? Like old English teacher, and this is how you write an essay, and this is how you close an essay. But really, that's one of the reasons that I keep going back to that, because you can set all of these things up. And to your point, if kids need to come in, particularly if you've got littles, I mean, we started in this 3-5 space, but there are K2 kids doing this. So if you go down in that K2 space, there are gross motor skills that they have to get after. It's important to finger paint. It's important to use Play-Doh. It's important to build models as they grow. It's important to do some science things. And with that hybrid scenario, can we do all of those things online? Yeah, we can. But for lots of kids, for some kids, that'll work just perfectly. For lots of kids, though, the idea that they can touch it and manipulate it, that tactile experience, that's huge. And hybrid just lets us do that in so many different ways.
So this is not rehearsed, obviously, but back in the K2 time, and maybe even higher, do you actually use something like Legos? And so kids can see if they go left with something, if right doesn't work, but going left works? Yeah. So
there's a whole set of manipulatives that we use in math. We can use building blocks like Legos we've used them in science. We use them in the building models, right? I've used sugar cubes. I've used kidney beans. I've used rubber bands. I don't always recommend that one. Those get a little dicey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I used to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things you kind of know. And then as technology has come along, right, we've been able to build models online. So, like, for example, my daughter is now building models in a 3D, for one of her classes, in a 3D modeling application, right? And it's available online. Like, she doesn't have to download it or anything. These things are becoming ubiquitous. And because they're all out there, we can take that K2, the need to model doesn't end when the gross motor stuff gets taken care of. You need to model all the way up. And so you can do that both in a hybrid perspective by getting them in and having them use real materials. But you also now it's becoming increasingly easier to model online through things that are just available to the world.
So Chase, I'm sure you're reading about the bad press that online learning is getting, particularly in minority communities in some places. So you get something good happening here. How can you advise? How can you help people, help administrators understand the benefits of what you have without being a salesman?
I think the best thing to do is to start by separating two separate ideas that are out there. The first is what most students experienced in spring of 2020, where the teachers tried to take what was happening in the classroom and force it into this online environment. And it's not a good experience for kids. They're two separate things.
And they can't absorb it.
It's a completely different model. The way that the teacher, the administrator needs to think about this is it's an apples to oranges. I mean, they're so vastly different. So having this compared to an intentionally designed product that allows students not just to have their worksheet instead of a piece of paper, it's online. No, that's not an intentionally designed product. That's just a PDF. An intentionally designed product includes things like multimedia. It has some form of a gamification feel. It allows students to communicate and collaborate in a digital environment, not just using a computer for Word and PowerPoint, but using a computer as the tool that it helps them to engage with the curriculum. And you engage digitally different than you engage in person. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I am saying you cannot take one and cram it into the other and expect a good experience. That just doesn't work that way. But with an intentionally designed product, its application is a foundation in digital. And then it becomes very easy to take your foundation of digital and layer on top of it, to use your example, Legos, right? If your foundation is digital, it's easy to layer on top of a project-based learning piece. It's easy to layer on top a social emotional piece. It's easy to layer all these things on. But if your foundation is poor, you have no chance of being successful. And unfortunately, so many schools over the last 18 months have realized in a really hard way that you can't just swap out what you're doing from an in-person to an online model. And it's unfortunate. And I know I've said it many times. I'll say it again. I think we're doing a disservice to these students because we're not stopping and saying, where do I find the right tool to solve this problem? I can take my boot off right now and try to hammer a nail in the wall, but that's never going to be as effective if I take the time, go find a hammer, and hammer that nail in appropriately. Jen, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this.
I do. I don't want to soapbox because I might. Let's be honest. But Ed, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from teachers along this line is that what's happening right now as far as online, which is where a lot of this negative press is coming from, I'm hearing it described a lot as triage. We're taking evasive action because of this thing that is pushing in on us, and we don't really have a choice, and we really don't have a way to get out of it. So I've heard a lot of teachers say, hey, listen, I'm not teaching online. I'm triaging, right? I'm getting the very basics that I can get to these students. I'm doing it in the very best way that I can. I am exhausted. I don't necessarily have the tools or the training or the anything along those lines to do this. So a lot, and I have not taken a poll, so this is not scientific, but I do interact with lots of folks online, and I do repeatedly see this theme that, hey, what we're doing isn't really online. It's not really distance learning, and it doesn't matter what the schools are calling it. And so to Chase's point, as we're talking about what this intentionality with bringing the students online and really building programs for online and then online and hybrid, and then branching out from there, from that kind of delivery space, that's a wholly different thing. That's what's going on. And I think, programs like this where we can talk about it and just kind of get that word out and really say, listen, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing, because we really, really, really have the same goals, and that is that students succeed where they are, and that we can push them and get them where they need to go so that they can be successful in what they want to do as they go find their passion as we move forward.
Jen, listening to you, it's just really been spiritual. It's like a connection is made here.
This is totally my passion. Like, this is right here. This is it. This is it for me.
Thanks for being on Global TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it. This has been fun.
Well, do it again, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chase.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thanks for being a sponsor, and come back. Take care. And Jen, please come back. Seriously.
Will do. Will
Okay.
do. Anytime.
All right. So how can people reach you?
Chase, you want to go?
Oh, people have my contact info, but I'll give it one more time. Chase@verano.org. You can see all about what Verano is doing in the schools we support at verano.org as well.
Great.
And I'm available generally through the StrongMind scenario where you can get me. I am jen.salta@strongmind.com. And Salta is salt with an A, Jen Salta at strongmind.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up there. And I'm next Gen Ed, next JENED on Twitter. That's my handle on Twitter.
Cool.
But yeah, I'd love to connect.
All right. Thank you. Global TV, thanks you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.